You ever try to break a bad habit only to find yourself right back where you started, maybe just minutes later? Things like mindless snacking, procrastinating, or just compulsively checking your phone. We've all been there. It feels like this constant battle of willpower that you just can't seem to win. But what if fighting isn't the answer? What if the real secret to breaking a bad habit is actually kind of simple? All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to look at why we struggle so much with habits, dive into the ancient brain science that's running the show, and figure out why just trying harder often backfires. Then we'll get to the cool part, a totally different approach that uses curiosity and how you can actually use it in your own life. So first up, let's just talk about how hard this stuff is. I mean, someone tells you to just focus, and it sounds so easy, right? I remember the first time I tried to meditate, the instructions were simple. Just pay attention to my breath. But wow, it was completely exhausting. I felt like I was in a wrestling match with my own mind. And it turns out I'm definitely not the only one who feels that way. And that really is the big question, isn't it? We tell ourselves, okay, focus on this work, or listen to this person, or just breathe. And our brain is just somewhere else entirely. Why does it feel like we're constantly fighting against ourselves? Well, get this. Research shows that at any given time, even when we're doing our absolute best to concentrate, like, say, listening to this right now, about half of us are going to drift off into a daydream or get that itch to check our phones. So if your mind is wandering, it's not some personal failure. It's just what our brains do. The real question is, why?
The answer, it turns out, is deep in our wiring. We're not fighting a lack of discipline. Nope, we're up against one of the oldest, most basic learning systems our brains have. It's a survival mechanism that's been around forever. It's called reward-based learning, and it's a super simple 3-step process. Think of it like a little recipe our brain follows to figure out what's good for us. It's designed to help us remember where the food is and, well, how to not die.
So let's go way back. Picture one of our ancestors. The trigger, they see some food. Their brain screams, calories, survival. The behavior, they eat the food. And the reward, it tastes good, their stomach stops growling, and a little chemical signal goes off in their brain that says, hey, remember what you just did? Do it again. Trigger, behavior, reward. Simple, effective, and it kept us alive. But here's the catch. That brilliant survival loop gets totally hijacked by our modern world. Our clever brains figured out this doesn't just work for finding berries. Now the trigger can be an emotion. You feel sad or stressed out. The behavior? You eat some cake or smoke a cigarette. The reward? For a quick second, you feel a little bit better. The loop is exactly the same, but the result? Not so good for our survival. So what's our go-to move when we realize a habit is bad for us? Well, we try to use brute force. We rely on willpower, trying to think our way out of the habit. We fire up the newest, most evolved part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. This is our thinking brain, right? It's the CEO, the part that's supposed to be in charge of planning and self-control. It knows, logically, that we shouldn't have that third slice of pizza, and it tries its very best to slam the brakes on that old, automatic habit loop. But here is the fatal flaw in that whole plan. That prefrontal cortex, our command center for willpower, is the very first part of our brain to go offline when we get stressed out. So at the exact moment we need it the most, when we're tired or upset and that craving hits like a ton of bricks, our main tool for fighting it just checks out, and we fall right back into the old habit. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. If forcing ourselves out of a habit doesn't work, what if we tried the complete opposite? What if instead of fighting the urge, we just got really, really curious about it? This is the whole idea behind using mindfulness to change our habits. Seriously, think about that. Instead of yelling at yourself, don't do it, or stop eating that, you give yourself permission to do it, but with one small catch. You just have to pay super close attention while you're doing it. You basically become a scientist of your own bad habit. And this is exactly what researchers had people do in a study with smokers. They said, go ahead and smoke, but be really curious about what it's actually like. The results were incredible. One of the smokers said this. When she paid attention, instead of just distracting herself, she realized smoking was actually pretty gross. And this right here perfectly explains the difference between knowledge and wisdom. That smoker already knew smoking was bad for her. That's knowledge. It's in your head. But by being curious, she learned it in her bones. She felt on a deep physical level how unrewarding it really was. And that is wisdom. That's what broke the habit spell. And hey, this isn't just a nice idea, it actually works.
In that study, the mindfulness training was twice as effective at helping people quit smoking as the gold standard therapy. Twice. By becoming disenchanted with the habit, they didn't have to force themselves to quit. They just lost interest. Okay, so let's put this all together into a new kind of habit loop, one we can use to start letting go of the things that aren't helping us anymore. So what we're really talking about with mindfulness here is just this: seeing clearly what we're actually getting from our habits. When we see that the behavior isn't really giving us that great reward we thought it was, we become disenchanted. And from that place, we can just naturally let it go. So here's the new playbook. Step 1, you notice the urge to eat, to procrastinate, whatever it is. But instead of fighting it or giving in, you go to step 2, get curious. What does this urge actually feel like in your body? Is it a tightness, a buzzing? Just watch it. And then step 3 is the new reward, that little moment of joy you feel when you realize you don't have to be bossed around by that craving anymore. And the best part? This works for so many of our modern habits. The next time you feel that pull to check email just because you're bored, or you get that urge to text while you're driving, just try it. Get curious. Notice the feeling and see what happens when you just watch it for a second instead of jumping to react. So really, every time we feel one of those urges, it's a choice. It's a fork in the road. We can keep running that old, exhausting habit loop that just leaves us feeling stuck, or we can step out of it with a little bit of curiosity, discover that simple joy of letting go, and actually start to be free. So the next time it happens, which loop will you choose?